Okay. Welcome to the Voter Interest Project's candidate interviews for 2023. I'm Alan McPheeters, the Executive Director of the Voter Interest Project. Our mission is to provide voters with the information they need to make informed decisions about government, candidates, and ballot measures. Our focus is local. We cover Island County, its cities and towns, and various special districts, as well as the representatives from the 10th Legislative District. The 2023 elections are local and nonpartisan. We are covering 44 elective offices on this year's ballot, including mayors, city councilors, school board directors, and commissioners for hospital, port, fire, parks, and cemetery districts. 67 candidates filed for these offices during filing week in May, and we've invited all of them to do interviews for you. We also have extensive coverage of these elections and the actions of these government agencies on our website, voterinterests.com. The following interview is with Shane Hoffmire, a candidate for mayor in Oak Harbor. Mr. Hoffmire is currently a city councilman, first elected in 2021. This interview is being recorded on June 16th, 2023, and we provided a list of potential questions to Councilman Hoffmire in advance of the interview. And with that introduction out of the way, let's get started.
Thank you.
Shane, welcome to the Voter Interest Project.
Thank you very much. Wonderful to be with you today. You know, a wonderful Oak Harbor Friday. We have the Windmill Fundraiser Project coming up tonight at 5 o'clock at Flyers. And there's a ribbon cutting at 5:45 at Throw-In Axes. Great new business in town here. So it's a wonderful Friday, and I'm really glad to be able to meet with you today.
Outstanding. That is a lot of stuff going on for a Friday. And hopefully this rain that just started won't put a kibosh on any of that. But
I sure hope so. Hope the rain gets out of the way here.
Absolutely. Let's start with just a few, quick hit biographical information for you about you. Are you married or single?
So I have a fiance, and we have a wonderful 2-year-old son together named Legend.
Outstanding.
We were scheduled to get married at the start of COVID, and COVID canceled that wedding 3 times. So once we get this election behind us, the plan is to get that done. But it has been an amazing 5 years together.
Outstanding. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I understand that you grew up here on Whidbey. Is that right?
I did. I moved to Oak Harbor July 12th of 1999 when I was 14 years old. And, instantly fell in love with Oak Harbor. Having moved here from Southern Indiana, from the Midwest, it was the greatest thing ever. And, here we are 24 plus years later, and it is still the most wonderful place on the planet.
Outstanding. So one more thing, what do you do? I mean, obviously you're a city councilman. What is your day job?
Yeah, so when I got elected to city council, I had worked in public sector housing for 13 years, working extremely closely with HUD. And once I got elected to council, there was no real way to do 3 full-time jobs at the same time. So I left that position there with housing and became the full-time aquatic facilities operator for the pool in the Parks District here in town.
Oh, very good. Okay.
Yes. So before that, built some custom houses on the south end of the island for a few years. And then going back before that, I was really big into the farming. Had 3 or 4 farms in operation from here to Eastern Washington. So pretty cool. So done a little bit of all of it.
Interesting. So you have a background in housing then? And
yes.
Okay, good. That's good information now, especially for a city councilman or mayor. Are there other organizations, community organizations, governmental districts and things that you've had some involvement with? I mean, obviously the pool, but any other boards, commissions, community groups?
Yeah. So before I was elected to council, I was on the North Whidbey Pool Park and Recreation Board for 2 terms. I think if you'll remember back to 2017 when the maintenance and operations and levy failed there, lost all of our staff. It was just the boards, so in my time there, held every position on the board there, but whether it was acting chair or whether it was sitting chair, the work that the work that we did together with the community to get that pool reopened, to the following November getting 63, almost 64% of the vote to support that. It Anyone that was in that facility previously just marvels at the difference in the material condition that you have today, but also, the behind the scenes, the policies and the procedures that makes the place work have been totally revamped as well, and just really educational to be part of that whole process. In city government, you have all these layers. You have legal, and you have your administrators, and you have finances. At parks districts, at the smaller levels of government, you don't always have all those levers, and quite often it all falls to you. So just did it all there, obviously, and what an amazing piece of teamwork by this community to come together. And other than that, had been really involved with the Little League here in town, or the Whidbey Island Pony Club, et cetera. And just it's all of these service groups that really make this such a special place.
Very good. Very good. So, and I should note, you're at what, the Whidbey Coffee over on Pioneer?
I am.
Okay. You see a little movement in the background, so people know what that's.
I can't stand the sterile environment of the home office, right? So down here I came. Like I said, the attempt was to come to you from outside, but it started raining.
Yeah. Very good. All right, so let's talk about the campaign and what you have in mind. The mayor of Oak Harbor is the head of government of 170 people. Obviously, you have some experience with almost 2 years now on the city council, but what experience do you have with leading bigger organizations, managerial skills, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, 180 employees actually with Oak Harbor. We've got a lot of seasonal workers as well for the summer, and a couple new hires, but we have 180 employees right this second. And fortunately, you have the layers of the department heads. You have your public works director, and your park and rec director, and your administrator, and HR, et cetera, on and on and on. A really great staff that we have at the city right now. So the experience of the council member, obviously. At the Parks District, I have supervisory authority over about 50 employees on average. Now, in my time being at public sector housing, I had supervisor authority there for most of the time I was there, and then going back to the construction building in the private sector, it was the same. All the way back to almost high school time frame when I was running these farms. At that point I had 100 to 150 employees, and you didn't have all those layers of department heads, so you were more responsible for some of that day to day as well. But my 15 plus years of working in government, plus the time in private sector, and my 8 years of being an elected office holder, really feel like that has me ready to take this on.
Very good. The mayor of Oak Harbor presents a budget on a biennial basis. One budget covers 2 years. What budgeting experience do you have for organizations of that size?
Yeah. So with the city of Oak Harbor, we have an amazing finance director, David Goldman, one of the brightest minds I've ever met, and a finance department with around 10 employees in it. So per state law, it is the mayor's budgetary recommendation. That is correct. But it is that finance director and that staff that's really turning the screws and making that happen, obviously. I would say my most direct and recent experience with a budget of that size, a biennial budget in the 250 million neighborhood, if you include all the all the separate funds, all the enterprise funds, et cetera, right? So my most recent experience would be as a council member, sitting in committee and in workshop and council meetings to work to create and approve that budget. It was, even though it's the mayor's budget, council has to approve of it. So the mayor rightfully allows council to help tweak that and set that how they want to see their budget as well. So kind of everybody gets what they want, and that's what the people want, right? So that would be my most recent and relative experience on that, obviously. Now, that said, whether it's a $250 million biennial or you go to the Parks District where you're dealing with a $3 million biennial budget, difference in zeros, yes, but the process is the same. And at that lower level, you're actually quite a bit more involved. And basically, I mean, in Park and Recs, for instance, I mean, it's a zero-based budget. There isn't wiggle room. There isn't that grandiose general fund. And then you go to my time at housing, as I was the maintenance supervisor there, had to create the maintenance budget every single year. And that was a several $1 million budget. But private sector with the farm and the feedlot, boy, if you didn't get that perfect, you weren't eating at the end of the day. So
That's true.
I think that's the relative experience that I think the average citizen, the average ratepayer would understand of kitchen table economics, if you will. And that's where it ties into my view of affordability, and that every decision has to be based on how it affects the average citizen in Oak Harbor and whether we can afford it. And sometimes it's whether you can afford not to do it as well.
Oh, tell me more. What might you not be able to afford to not do?
So, when you're looking at livability, for instance, public safety, Oak Harbor is, over the last 8 years, Oak Harbor has been the number 1 or number 2 safest city in the state of this size. That's a great thing, but it doesn't mean that there's not more that you can do. There's always more. As our city has grown to the south and southwest over the last 20 years, fire response times really started to struggle, really started to suffer, to the point to where our ISO, or our Washington Survey and Ratings Bureau rating of a 4 was at risk of possibly going up to a 6 as time started to slip. So not only were you risking lives by having it take 8-9 minutes to respond to Howard Point, for instance, you were also risking that Survey and Rating Bureau increasing to a 6, and everybody's homeowners insurance going up by 30 to 40%.
That's what I was going to ask, is what is the significance?
So council, after 14 years of Chief Merrill and staff saying, hey, we need a second satellite station, this council took that on, and this council put that on the ballot. We were unanimous in our support of it, and we felt the public would support it as well. And 63% of the Oak Harbor voters that voted to create that satellite station. And we've got staffing models to go with it and equipment to go with it. And the Survey and Ratings Bureau had reached out to the fire chief, and once this station is completed, they have offered to do a snap audit rating, if you will. And the outcome looks like they're going to actually put us down to a survey rating of a 3, which could possibly decrease, some homeowners insurance. But when you're talking commercial insurance, it could actually reduce it quite a bit for a lot of businesses. And that's not even an outcome we've seen. We just knew that with the public safety aspect of it, and with the homeowners insurance going up, that it was something that, even in this tough economic time, it was something that couldn't wait. And to see that the voters too felt the same way was a beautiful thing, really. And everybody loves a fireman. We know that.
Now, it's interesting you bring that up, because we've seen, not at the city, and the city is a sort of an exception, but we've seen Oak Harbor school district has failed twice with bond measures. South Whidbey's failed. Stanwood Camano has failed on 2 bond measures, and Oak Harbor was able to get both that bond measure and then the funding, the ongoing operational funding, to pass in front of the voters. Did you have a role in promoting those measures, and how do you think that the role you played made an impact?
So the role that I played in, passing the maintenance and operations levy for the Parks District was obviously, that's pretty known. And it's hitting the street, it's sign waving, it's, very clear and concise messaging. It's just taking it to the voters, right? And it was much the same with the fire levy, whether it was door knocking or holding signs or just council being unanimous in that support. If there were one counselor that was against it, it probably would have pushed it to the point of not passing. Uh, you know, so the role there is, as a council member and as a community member, supporting it for sure. Now with the school, I truly believe that a majority of our community supports schools. If you look at your property tax breakdown, especially at the state level, there's a lot of tax money that already goes to schools. And I, yes, there's all these different pots of money, but the average voter, the average taxpayer only has one checkbook. So I think it can be messaging to see Senator Musal and, Rep Paul and Rep Shavers be able to bring that $27 million home, to be able to pair it with that 80% match from the DOD, and to get at least two of these three schools built. What a great, beautiful thing. As far as the third school they need, it can be timing, but I believe in the Oak Harbor School District. I'm a product of the Oak Harbor School District, and their new superintendent, Michelle, seems like a real go-getter, and I think that's evidenced from her convincing our state legislature to make it happen.
Sure. Let's pivot a little bit. What do you think is the biggest challenge for the city of Oak Harbor currently?
Biggest challenge, affordability, livability. Our biggest challenge had been accountability and just the fact that the residents weren't feeling heard. I feel like in all those areas, despite national trends even, I feel like in all those areas, we've made some real progress. And, part of my running is wanting to protect that change, to protect that progress, but also the longer we keep our foot on the gas pedal, I think, to accelerate that change. But surely, given national trends, affordability is surely one of the main sticking points. And there are some levers and buttons that local government can pull or push to affect change there. And there are some inflationary trends that are out of our control, obviously.
But we've had recently, obviously, the clean water facility has gone into effect, and you have to pay those bonds off.
Yes.
And we just passed that transportation benefit district, which is a tax increase for citizens, needed, I think, but still an increase. So what do you think that as mayor you could do that's going to impact affordability?
Yeah, and again, it would be that teamwork with council for sure. But as we go back to Washington D.C. and work with our representatives, and we go to Olympia and work with our representatives, or even meet with our local representatives and senator right here at Woodby Coffee at times, to continue to lobby for what relief we can get. I was on the ARPA subcommittee, and that gave the city of Oak Harbor $6.5 million.
Nope, let's
A majority of that.
define ARPA, please.
Yes,
Most people don't know what that means.
Thank you very much. That is a great point. So the American Rescue Plan Act, that was the post-COVID money to where the government wanted to stimulate the economy and help local governments and state governments come through COVID.
Okay, very good.
The city of Oak Harbor was granted $6.5 million out of that. And, while sitting on that committee, we were able to invest a lot of that money in critical infrastructure repair in areas such as water and sewer, those enterprise funds, where those repairs would have had to have came off the backs of the ratepayers. Council was able to get a $1.9 million inflow and infiltration grant from Congressman Larson's office and from Congress to repair our failing sewer lines. There had been a lot of reports of the wastewater treatment plant having capacity issues. They weren't really capacity issues per se as our failing sewer lines that are below the water table. We're basically letting these underground streams flow right into the treatment plant. So getting that $1.9 million there to really jumpstart replacing the sewer lines in the part of town where I'm sitting here. We just did another $500,000 project separately over Northeast 9th and 10th. We relined both of those sewer lines from one end of the road to the other. So really preserving the treatment plant while getting all these other critical infrastructure things done. But those repairs would have had to have came off the backs of the ratepayers without that ARPA money. And so what that did, the previous council had went out for a rate feasibility study on the water sewer garbage rates. And the rates were projected to have to go up $35 a month, which is just untenable. And I think past council knew that as well. By really doubling down on some of these numbers, by being as fiscally prudent as possible, by getting these critical infrastructure repairs going, we were actually able to lower our utility rate $4.14 a month. And that was in the face of these unprecedented inflationary trends. So $4 isn't much, but I would say the $4 plus the $35, that $39 delta is huge.
Sure.
But back to how the mayor can help affect that. It's, through lobbying with the state, through lobbying with our federal government, et cetera. The treatment plant, the clean water facility, has $116 million in debt. 91 million of that is through state revolving fund loans. And, so working with the state and federal government to refinance that or to forgive some of that debt. The most recent cycle here in Olympia, our state legislators recognize that debt, and their plan to help us moving forward would actually be to give us funding to handle future capital infrastructure repair projects within the plant. And so again, that would in the same way effectively help bring those rates down.
Very good.
But as mayor and working with the council, just to really expand the options for people on where they can live, where they can work, where they can recreate. And there's some levers you can pull. If we can get some better paying jobs in here, that fights the national trend of inflation as well. So it's really, too much to go into in a 30-minute interview, but there are a lot of ideas and, a lot of which we've been working on very hard.
Talking about housing affordability reminds me of another question. I used to be on the planning commission, and we would talk about, building new housing. Housing's been a topic for years and years around here. Let me ask you this question. If we're going to build more housing, do you have a preference for building out or building up? That is, expanding the urban growth area or increasing density within the existing?
The state of Washington, over the last 15 years, the state of Washington has told us our only option is to go up, basically. Yeah. So we've onboarded that information, and we've I think one of the greatest feats we've taken on as a council is modernizing our developmental code, whether it be decreasing the minimum lot size or allowing auxiliary dwelling units or, allowing everything, all residential to be upzoned one zone, to allow R2 to be R3, so many other areas within that code that we've tweaked. One of the things that we were recently looking at was a low-income tax exemption, for instance, and low-income tax credits, et cetera. Those are kind of the gold standard to kind of really get some of that low-income housing moving. But yeah, surely, in some of the infill areas, the only answer is to go up.
One of the questions I had when I got on the planning commission is, do we have a map of where these infill areas are? We do, because I didn't really feel like I got an answer that we did have one. Now, I was on the planning commission in 2019 and 2020. So you could lay out a map of Oak Harbor and say, these are the lots where we think there should be additional building.
And some of the software that we've onboarded over the last year, you can go on the website and you can find where any vacant lot in town is. You can find out what utilities it has, what its zoning is. So we've really taken some great strides with our technology, and that's actually something that was the previous council actually started the ball rolling on that one, and we've just kept the pedal down and said this is a good thing. Let's make it happen. And in the past, the city of Oak Harbor had earned the reputation of, looking for reasons to say no on things like that. Our staff is very hardworking, and if the laws and codes will allow, they look very hard for ways to say yes.
Very good. Yeah, I had the sense of that while I was on the planning commission. I know we've changed the development services director since I was involved in that, but the team, CACMAC and Ray Lindenberg and those guys do a really good job.
So sharp, and we got we have David Cool in there now, and Ginger Pennington as well. I mean, anytime you walk in that building, it feels like they're rolling out the welcome mat and the red carpet for you.
Very good. Couple things that have come up while you've been on the council.
Yes.
I know we've seen you in action on city council meetings, but for people who have better hobbies than me watching those meetings, talk about some recent topics. Where did you come down on the city giving money to the Port of Cookville by the airport? Is that a good idea or not?
Yeah, I think the majority, if not all of the council members, really wanted to see the Port of Cookville, take over that airport and to get that airport in public hands. We were willing to contribute 200,000 to their feasibility study to really get that going if they were able to make that purchase, which it turned out they weren't able to. But that 200,000 was the amount that Oak Harbor was willing to go into on that. I will say that our meetings in Olympia back in February, our meetings in Olympia did net us 621,000 for economic development. So of that money, we felt that 200,000 would be sensible to put into the airport for economic development. And it just, for whatever reason, whether the port tried to get going on it a little too late or if it just wasn't meant to be. But I don't believe any council member is willing to have the city of Oak Harbor own the airport.
Okay. So, well, first of all, maybe take a minute to talk about why you think that public ownership for that airport would be better than private ownership.
Yeah, of course. In the meetings with our state reps, in the meetings, with our congressmen and senators, every one of them, in talking with them, their eyes get really big when talking about the airport and public ownership. And it's just because there's so many state and federal granting programs out there that would really, bring that airport up to FAA standards and get it to where it could contribute economically, to where it could, to where some of the local colleges could use it to train, small engine repair on the airplanes, and the jobs that it would add, and the flights and the tourism. But it just looks like it's not to be, and I hope that the private purchaser is able to figure out a way to open it for public use at least.
Very good. One more thing that's kind of happened during your watch. So this whole argument between Beth Munns and Blaine Oborn. I think a lot of people don't really understand what was going on there and why the council acted the way they did. Are you going to cover what the issue was there?
Yeah, there was an issue, and I don't necessarily think it was all that different than how the newspaper reported it. It's council's job to regulate council, nobody else's. I think council as a whole felt that sometimes stepping away from a situation, sometimes figuring out a way to move forward without blaming or indicting anyone. Council did decide that we felt the need to move forward. And Councilor Heisen, Mayor Pro Tem Heisen has been the Mayor Pro Tem since then, and she's done a marvelous job, by the way. But and I don't want to go too far into the personnel matter, obviously, but I do want to say, our we have one of the greatest staffs in the city I've ever seen. And surely the city administrator has to get a lot of the credit for hiring that staff and for helping to guide that staff, especially given some of Mayor's health issues as of late. Everybody's really stepped up and been great team players. But I also want to say, I think we have the best and the most effective council that we've possibly ever had. And surely Councilor Munns deserves a lot of the credit for that as well. So there was a situation and we tried to figure out a way to move forward on it. You're not always going to make everybody happy, but I do feel like we are in a way better position than we were a year ago.
Checking the time, when we got started, so I'm not quite sure where we are with time. But why don't we kind of bring things to a close? What is the most important thing that voters should know about you when they're deciding who should be the next mayor?
The most important thing they should know about me? Mm-hmm. I love Oak Harbor. I love Oak Harbor so much. And, I was just sitting down here, logging in to talk with you, and was reading a letter to the editor in the Whitby Weekly about me.
Yes, from TJ Lamont over at the Bible.
I did not realize that that letter from Pat and TJ was in there. I met them 24 years ago, and the amount of support and love that the people of Oak Harbor have always afforded me. It is a great feeling, and I will always fight for the people of Oak Harbor. I will always be approachable, and I will always have their backs.
Outstanding. Great. Thank you so much. What is the best way for voters to find out more about you? Website or Facebook, or what's the best avenue?
Yeah, of course. So I have my Facebook, Shane Hoffmire. I would recommend anybody go there. I post as much government stuff on there as I can. And, also pictures of the weekend fishing trip, or pictures of the sunset at nighttime. ShaneHoffmire.com, my website. All the information is on there. My personal cell phone number is on there as well. So feel free to call me or message me. Ask me any questions you have. If it's a campaign related email, you can email me at ShaneHoffmire.com. And if you have any questions about the city, anything you would like to see us do or fix or take care of, that email address is shoffmire@oakharbor.org. And we look forward to figuring out how we can, just continue to facilitate these relationships and affect this change. And typically, our council meetings are the first and third Tuesday of each month at 6 o'clock at City Hall. And I would love to see that lobby full.
Great. And we should mention also, and maybe even more important, the city council's work sessions, where they really find out with the details of what policy.
The work sessions are incredibly important. I get giddy on workshop day because it's where we're able to really, get down and dirty and make things happen. And another really exciting thing are our TBD projects, our neighborhood paving projects that are happening in the northwest part of town this year. They will be starting June 26th. And that West Whidbey revamp, that West Whidbey repave and replacement of all those utilities is beginning July 5th.
Outstanding. Great. Councilman, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. It was amazing. Great. Thank you for all you do.
You bet. My pleasure.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right, so let's just have a few closing words then. We want to thank Councilman Hoffmire for doing this interview with us. Thank you for watching our interview with Councilman Hoffmire. We invite you to subscribe to our newsletter, which is available in 4 local editions. Where's my notes? There they are. 4 local editions: Camino Island, North Whidbey, Central Whidbey, and South Whidbey. The newsletter arrives in your mailbox every Monday morning with news and events from your part of Island County. You can subscribe to our newsletter at voterinterest.com/subscribe and look for more of these candidate interviews as the election season continues. Thank you and have a good day.